I wonder if miracle is something we use for something that's simply unexpected. Like the Old Testament miracles that we encounter, parting of seas and the manifesting of food from nothing. And it's exciting and compelling, but those people still died at the end of their lives who saw that. It's about how we live. That's really what it's all about.
What happens after we die? How does prayer actually work? What's heaven like? Or hell, for that matter? On this show, we interviewed Christian ministers from a Swedenborgian denomination to explore the biggest philosophical and religious questions of all time. Join us for some big spiritual questions.
This is a hard question for me because I'm naturally a very skeptical person. Okay, so basically the new church idea here is that God affects the world to the degree and never further than will limit our freedom. Our freedom to believe, our freedom to understand. So in modern day, if a big lightning bolt struck and then there was a guy in the middle of the street and he said, "Hi, I'm God," it'd be pretty hard to not believe in God, right? At a time where everyone was theistic and believed in usually a pantheon of gods, hearing about one other God that did some cool stuff was like, oh yeah, they got a God that's pretty active. That's kind of wild, right? It didn't have the same weight on a person's freedom that Western culture particularly would have today. God values above all else our freedom. And so whatever he does is always with our freedom in mind. Because if we choose him because there's no other choice, if we believe in God because there's no other way, God might as well have just built a bunch of robots that all they did was say, "I love God" all day, right? Like that's not the point. That's not what creation is. It's not what humanity is. Humanity has value, has beauty, has importance because of freedom.
So if miracles do occur, and again, I don't have a strong sense of to what extent miracles do occur now. I believe if they do occur, they don't take away freedom. And if they do occur, they're only going to be confirming something that someone already believes from a deeper thing. They're not going to be like the main thing. They might be like, oh, that's nice, a miracle happened. If you're already thoroughly entrenched in a belief in a God who works miraculously.
According to the doctrines for the new church, we are left in freedom. In fact, not just left, not just abandoned in our freedom. We are blessed with freedom and reason. And those interplay in our lives so that we can choose this day and each day whom we'll serve. And we do that from a place of study, sometimes from a place of habit until we start to own it. This is where the real miracles happen, when we choose to do what is good over things that are harmful. That's really miraculous.
I would say the teachings of the new church generally say that miracles and signs like that are not going to happen in the same way today for your sake, because they don't help with actual, real, lived belief and faith, which we can see from the Old Testament. How many miracles did the Lord do for the children of Israel? And did they carry on believing in him? No, they turned to idolatry very quickly, time after time after time. And in the New Testament, it's this funny thing where the scribes and Pharisees ask the Lord, well, show us a sign, prove to us that you are the Son of God. And were they not watching the last couple of times when they saw him and shamed him for healing a man on the Sabbath day? Was that not a sign? If the Lord cared about just us believing that he exists, maybe he would do more miracles today. Boom, he appears. I'm real. Okay, I believe you exist. But his goal is way beyond just thinking that, okay, tick that box, God exists, now I'm fine. No, he wants a relationship with us. And because he wants a relationship with us, he's going to take a different approach that forces us to go inward rather than just believing in something external. He wants something where we have to do some work, where we have to invite him in, where we read something in scripture and think about it more And in that process, we are interacting with the Lord in our minds, in our hearts, rather than just seeing some physical stimulus out here. That's why the Lord said to Thomas, who had questioned whether he'd really risen from the dead and said, I won't believe unless I can stick my fingers in the hole in his sides and in his hands. He got to do that. And the Lord said, blessed are those who have believed and not seen. It's better to not see physical miracles so we can come to a place of belief through conscious choice and through internal work and experiencing the Lord on the inside, rather than just because of some physical stimulus that happened outside of us.
The doctrines for the new church give us a sense of how we can understand the Old Testament miracles and how they represent, surprise, surprise, life change, the things that shift within us, moving from one state of mind, from one frame of being to another. That's what these miracles are telling us about in the Old Testament. Take the folks at the Pool of Bethesda. People gathering around, waiting for a miracle, waiting for the waters to stir so they can walk on down and get healed. And then Jesus comes along and just picks someone, heals him, and leaves. It's like it's a whole courtyard full of people waiting for miracles, and he didn't go around healing each of them. It's not about the physical healing. It's about the change of spirit. It's about that change in their lives. So the Old Testament, the New Testament, they're filled with miracles. Look deeper. Look beyond it.
I know for a long time, I really wanted to see something amazing, but sitting with it for myself, a lot of that came from control issues. I want a miracle to happen, and it needs to happen because I want it, instead of a more contented approach with what my life is. And I think to the extent that I try to yearn for something that I have no control over, I just make myself unhappy. So why would I yearn and crave a miracle when I have no control over miracles happening?
I really don't want to do the cop-out and say that we have modern miracles every day, that when people choose to hold the door, to be kind, or to donate or something, that's a miracle. And at the same time, I'm kind of slipping into it right now because it is, right? Think about what we're called to do. Think about what we're called to be. We're called to love one another in a way that doesn't necessarily come naturally to us. To have our lives changed, to be reborn, that's the real miracle. Taking on a new life, a new heart. And that's really hard. It happens with trial and error. It happens sometimes with a lot of pain. And yet, when we see, even just in ourselves, when we see that who we are is someone we wouldn't recognize 10 years ago, and it's a change for the better, that's really miraculous.
A colleague of mine was just doing a service for young children, like 2.5, 3-year-olds, last Sunday, about the story of Jesus turning water to wine. And one of the things he said to them is, the Lord's doing this miracle even now, all the time. You know how he does it? He takes water that falls down with the rain, and then it goes into a grape plant, and it grows up and then turns into grapes. Isn't that a miracle? And I just love that because, yeah, that is a miracle. There are miracles like that going on all the time. And the fact that we call only certain things miracles is a misunderstanding. Like, it's all a miracle. The fact that we're breathing right now, the fact that your heart is beating right now, that's a miracle. There is a choice involved in whether we see something to be a sign and miracle and proof of God's presence or not. So, a grape can be a sign of the Lord's presence, a miracle, proof that God exists. There's a passage in the teachings of the New Church that says, the universe is a stage on which are constantly being given proof that there is a God. But you have to be willing to see it.
I'm really struck by the idea that one of the clearest voices that God gives us is the voice of surprise. In other words, we're going through life and something happens. We're all saying like, wow, didn't see that coming. Didn't know that was going to happen. that idea of God's voice being the voice of surprise is so energizing, because I think miracles are what surprises you. What surprises you? And it's one I share a lot, and it was a very poignant moment for me as a pastor, was I had done a wedding, got a call a week later, one of the groomsmen in the wedding, his brother had died unexpectedly. The family didn't have a pastor, they didn't have a church, and they had liked the wedding I did, so they wanted me to come and do an internment service for this young man who had died. So I go down to Vineland, New Jersey. I go to the funeral parlor where the family's having visitation, and the family's distraught. They've got very little to share with me. They really don't want to sit down and go over stuff. And I know that the internment service is the next day. So, chatting with them, no information, but they did give me, because it's a hard, very understandably, very hard time, a little bit of newsprint, literally probably 2 inches of it. Simple obituary, the name of their son, born, died, just simple stuff. So I go back home, trying to figure out what to do, and I asked, well, what should I do? And somebody shared with me, well, maybe try to read a poem. Maybe that would be part of the service. So I picked a poem, and I go down to the funeral parlor. We're about to do the internment service, and this young man's mom comes out, and she's there, Chuck, could you just do one thing for me? And I said, sure. She said, can you make sure you work a poem into your words? I said, sure, no problem. And then she handed me the same poem I'd already picked out. Now, that to me is a miracle. That's the God of surprises. It's not the miracle of like raising the dead. It's not the miracle of, I'm going to pray and God's going to bless me with a parking spot. Like, I think we could shoot a little higher than that. But that's a miracle. So what I would say, if you're looking for a miracle, just simply look to be surprised. And if you do, you're going to see miracles all over the place.
So, what do you think? Comment your thoughts below or click on the link in the description to go to our website and contact us directly. If you want to support us, likes, comments, and subscriptions, as you know, are perfect. This show, just so you know, is produced by the General Church of the New Jerusalem, a branch of Swedenborgianism commonly known as the New Church. Our religion holds the Bible sacred and uses the writings of Emanuel Swedenborg to help distill its stories and parables beyond the literal scripture. If you're curious, no pressure, the link's in our description. Or, just watch more videos.